Dune can be rough. I agree. So maybe you'll get some tips and tricks here because it can be a lot. Hey everyone, it's Maria. Welcome back. I know we're just coming off of Taylor Swift week, but we have regular book reviews back in action. And so today we're going to talk about Dune. I know I've seen a comment regarding Dune and I wanted to talk about it. So this book is a very hefty book, right? He's like 600 pages long. And so the thing about it is it's actually written into like 3 parts. So you can see like book 3 in this book is the Prophet. Book 2 is the Muad'Dib. And so I thought it would be helpful, and also for me, if you guys have any guidance here, to maybe talk about this book by book within this book. So basically part by part within this book. And so I just finished book 1, which I think, what are we calling it? It looks like it is just Dune, book 1. Dune, excellent. Dune by Frank Herbert. And so I thought we would talk about it, part by part to really get a breakdown, kind of book club style. I think that's kind of cool. Let me know if you're into it. If you're not, well, I'm sorry, because that's what we're doing. But we can always change stuff up. So essentially, I'm going to put a card right here so you guys can see. Here's the synopsis of what Dune is about. Take a screenshot in case you want to, check that out later or read it a little more in depth. But essentially, that is the basis of what we're going to be talking about. Okay, so the first section here follows the Atreides going from their home planet of Caladan to Dune, or Arrakis, right? And their and what they're doing there. So I want to just kind of do this as an intro because I think there's a lot of conversation about Dune being difficult to read, and I can understand why. So I wanted to kind of break that down. So Dune is written in third person, right? So it is a third person science fiction, I guess you call fantasy even, story. And right when we're talking about science fiction, we're talking about something that has a dystopian future, science, obviously, and technology. And Dune has all of these things. So if you don't like any of those things, you might want to just tap out now. It's so interesting though, because when I was watching the movie Dune, it was so hard for me to realize like it's set in the future, just in the sense because there's dukes, lords, barons, all that stuff. It's very feudal system from the Middle Ages happening in the future, right? And Dune is set, I think, 10,000 years in the future. So it is very futuristic in that sense, even though it doesn't seem, aside from the galactic travel and going to different planets, it doesn't necessarily seem very, futuristic to me. I'm only in part 1, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. So why is it difficult? So I think Dune isn't difficult to read, right? I think it's definitely not written at a 6th grade reading level, and I think that's what a lot of books do, right? A lot of the stuff that we read in today's society is made at a 6th grade reading level, so that it is easily accessible to a lot of different people. Dune is not written at that level, so be aware. And I would say that Frank Herbert doesn't pull any punches. He treats us like we are citizens of this world he's created, and that we just know what everything is. Of course we know why the Atreides and the Harkonnen aren't getting along. Of course we know what happened before to create the fissure in the world, and why we have the Bene Gesserit now, and why we have mentats, and why there are no computer systems. Like, it's like he expects you just to know that, which we don't. So the world building there is a little questionable, because I don't know on Dune. You kind of have to do a lot of researching, or you just have to really pay attention while you're reading, because I think you could pick up some of these context clues. It's just you really have to read diligently and put an effort in. It's not just an easy read in the sense that you can just kind of breeze through it without really thinking about it. You actually have to think about what's happening in this book, and really maintain like a list of who's who belongs where, and how that interplays. So there's a lot of thinking that you have to do as a reader and do. I think another interesting part, I don't know if it makes it difficult, I think it can make it difficult at times, is the changing perspective. So although it is in third person, generally we see in fiction books, you're following one character, right? You see their thoughts, you see what they're doing, where they're going. You can kind of see where that one person is going to be led. in Dune, you get that perspective from everyone. So it's like one moment you're like, oh, okay, so Paul is he is the protagonist. We're following Paul. We're going to see his thoughts. We're going to follow him along. And then like, one paragraph it's Paul. The next paragraph you're actually in his mother's head. Now you're following her around and you're seeing her thoughts and what she's thinking. And then in the next paragraph, you're in the Reverend Mother and mind. And then you're in his father, the Duke's mind. And you're like following him around and what he's doing. And so that switch happens so quickly sometimes that you're like, wait, I thought we were just with Paul. And sometimes it can take a little bit to realize that you shifted and now you're somewhere else. And so I think that is good to note. There is also a lot of really hearing what the characters are thinking a lot. And I think sometimes Dune can suffer from over-explaining a character's intentions. And I think that's because of what I had said earlier, right? You don't understand the backstory. You need a little more help in the story right now in the present. And so I think there's a little overindulgence in allowing the characters to just tell you versus show you. So I think that is a hindrance in terms of how the pacing can be a little slow. And also just the politics, right? It kind of pains me to say this, but now that I'm thinking about it, you do have to kind of know a little bit about what's going on between the houses to understand the full picture of Dune. And so if you're not really into that, it can be a slog, you know what I mean? There was one scene I remember reading and we were talking about like how many sand crawlers there are on Dune, how many spice factories are up and running, and what, the Duke Atreides is going to do. And he's called essentially a project meeting, right? I do project meetings every day at work. I do not want to run another project meeting or sit in another project meeting that could have been an email in my book. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do that, okay? And so I would say the first 165 pages, and you can actually check out a reel I have on, maybe I'll put it right here, from Instagram, where I'm just like, what is happening? Where is the action? It's like page 165 before things actually start picking up. So just be aware of that. Those all combined can make it really slow. So I would say after I got to page 165 to 250, because that's where we start the next part, actually went by pretty quickly because things are happening, things are moving. You're like, oh, okay, this is cool, I'm getting it. We've kind of left behind the 160 pages of just political intrigue without, to me, the intrigue. So be aware. I think anyone can get through this book. You just have to read with intention. So on the flip side of that, I wanted to talk about things that might help you with this book. And so one of that is understanding the backstory. So, and then using the appendices in the back here, as well as the terminology. So back here, it will tell you, there's literally a whole thing about like the ecology of Dune, if you can see that, right? Like you have a whole page, like 20 pages back here that tells you that. And then you also have the religion of Dune, right? And I think some of that is very, very helpful because you need that to understand exactly why, the motives behind some of these people. And then you also have back here the terminology of the Imperium, which I found very helpful. So to help with that, aside from the back, right, definitely take a look at that. I thought it would be helpful to kind of talk and walk through some of that backstory. So let's talk about what happened before we got to where we are with Paul and the Atreides family on Dune, right? So before that even happened, long before, there was a war, right? So apparently society has gotten so advanced that we have these intelligent machines. Maybe it's like AI, I don't know. They don't really explain what that means, but they're intelligent machines that you have logic. It says that they're kind of made in the likeness of a human mind. So maybe they can rationalize things. I don't know, but it caused a revolt, right? I mean, I think that is such a modern even idea that technology can cause fear, which can cause people to react negatively. People like to think that, you know, machines are going to take their jobs from them, or they're going to overrun the world and then they'll be in charge and we'll be subservient to machines. So whatever the reasoning behind that, or the motivation behind that was, there was essentially a war, and all of the intelligent machines were wiped out. And a law was made that thou shalt not make a machine in the likeness of the human mind. So that's why you don't really see a lot of like crazy computers or anything like that on in this novel. Even if you're looking at the movie, notice you really didn't see that. What they rely on are called mentats, which are essentially human computers, right? They've kind of taken the place of the computers. So, and they see and rationalize and be very logical. Think Spock, if you will. And that's how they do like their how they figure out how many spice crawlers they have, any of their like you know, tactical moves, statistics, all that stuff. That's who they rely on. Excellent. But so that's one of the areas that getting rid of intelligent machines did. But the other area is like this upcoming Bene Gesserit faction, which is what Paul's mother, Lady Jessica, is, right? So she's part of this society that takes girls from childhood, weeds them out through a very painful test, and then trains them up to be spies. So essentially they're the counterpart to the mentat in the sense that they have more skills in terms of like psychology, subterfuge, espionage, utilizing religion in a way to affect the masses to get them to do what they want. So they have they can really read people, right? So that's something that they're really good at. So that's why Paul is such a unique character, because he's kind of, you see as we go that he kind of can do both. So that is the backstory, and I feel like that will really help you as you're going through and understanding what is happening and why people feel a certain way. Honestly, watching the movie really helped me. And I usually don't say that. I usually never say that. I never say watch the movie first. But I kind of watched it, and I didn't necessarily watch it super intently. I was doing some other stuff while I was watching it. But watching it definitely helped me to understand a little bit more about what was going on. And I don't really think it took anything from the book. So if you're watching the movie, that covers essentially part 1 and 2 in this book. And then I think if they do a second one, that'll cover the later half. And so I said, honestly, do it. Watch it. It's beautiful. The people are beautiful. The cinematography is beautiful. The landscape is beautiful. Like, I would definitely say, watch the movie and then read this if you're having a difficult time, because it really did help me, to be 100%. Totally helped me. So there's that. And also, like I said earlier, just really try and keep those characters straight in your head. It took me a good 30, 40 pages to really finally differentiate between who was who and what they were doing. But other than that, I would say it's been a good read so far. I think it has some really good themes in there, specifically about like ecology and a world, and how we've changed to fit the ecological environment we're in, but then also how as humans, we can change that, whether that's good or bad. I don't know yet, because we haven't gotten that far. But then also talking about like religion and power. So there's a lot of good things in here. So I would recommend it. So I would say I would recommend it. I'm reading this and in cold blood, and I think that was too much. So I had to soften some of that with like Serpent and Dove to give me just a little more balance in what I was reading. So yeah, that's what I think about Dune. Let me know what your thoughts are, and we'll catch up with part 2. I don't know, what do you guys want to say? Like in 2 weeks? Meet you here at the same place. Maybe after Thanksgiving, we could talk about what's happening in part 2, and maybe we'll go into more in depth about what happened in part 1. But But I just wanted this to be a little intro to helping you get through Dune, things that have helped me. And so I hope you enjoy it. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!